Now with each mating pair matching up quite nicely, what we have to do is start clipping these corners so that the whole assembly fits together. And the way that you're going to do that is you're going to clip the corner, and you can clip both corners and kind of meet in the middle, and that'll give you a very nice result. However, it's a very tricky cut to do on both sides, and there is a way to eliminate one of those cuts. If we cut just one side and it runs in line with one of the legs of the star, the next piece will simply overlap it and come down. Now this will eliminate one cut on each side so that we've only got to make 5 cuts. Now this cut is a little long, as you can see. It's still got a little bit of a lip there, and that's because I purposely cut it long so I can go back to the sander and again fair each one of these pieces until the entire assembly comes together nice and neat. And back over here at the disc sander, what we need to do is sand this edge flat. We need it to be in line with this edge, with this face of the star. So what's going to happen is when this is flat, this next piece will simply slide into place. At the moment, you can see that there is a gap right there, and of course we need to eliminate that, and the way we do that is sanding this face. We're going to continue doing that same process all the way around, and remember to take light cuts on this. It doesn't take much, and also try and keep as straight as possible. Hopefully you can still see your line there, and that'll give you a guide. So now when we put these two pieces together, we can see that we're perfectly flush across this joint, which is exactly what we need. So when we bring in our second piece, it comes together nice and tight with no gaps. So with that piece now done, we can set it aside and do the exact same thing to this piece here. Again, don't worry about these being different sizes yet. We'll take care of that in the next step. Just concentrate on getting this face right here flush with the other one. Now with all our edges smoothed out and fitting nicely, what we need to do is trim off some of this waste. So what we want to do is find the shortest piece, and E right here looks like about the shortest one in my batch. So what we're going to do is simply line it up, put it in its proper spot. And on the star, I went ahead and did just like before, found the center going from a short point to a long point, did that in a few spots, and I got a center point. So using the caliper, what I'm going to do is set my distance for this particular piece because it is the shortest, and simply draw an arc. That piece out of the way, we're going to go to our next piece, put it in its proper spot, and just do this for all 5 pieces. Then take them over to the bandsaw and trim off some of the waste. Now with the excess removed, we're ready to glue it up. Nothing really special here, just some Tite Bond. Going to use a brush, of course, get glue on all the surfaces, and then we're going to finish up with a couple of hose clamps. Now after letting the glue cure overnight, we're ready to go ahead and actually start turning this thing. So the question becomes is how do we mount it? Well, what we're going to do, of course, is thread it on to the insert that we initially put in the piece. Now, the easiest thing would probably be to use a little drill chuck like this and put in a scrap piece of 1/4 20 rod, thread that on there. And that's actually how I did the first one. But what I found is that when you thread this all the way down, you have very little shoulder here that comes in contact with our wood. And that actually adds a tremendous amount of strength and rigidity to the piece. So what I did was chucked up just a piece of scrap block here, and I did use my drill chuck, but I used it in my tailstock to drill out a center hole, which then I threaded in another piece of 1/4-20 rod. Now, when I get it threaded on there, I have a very broad shoulder, which will add a lot of strength and keep it from wanting to torque around so much and possibly either bend the rod or move our our nut out of alignment there. So that's actually balanced relatively well, and we're actually ready to go ahead and start turning it. But first, let me give you an idea of the game plan here. All I want to do at this point is basically just face this off. I want to get it nice and flat straight across. Next step is to take a secondary block, basically a glue block, and apply it to the front. Once that glue is set, I'm going to true up the glue block, remove the whole assembly, and basically flip it around backwards. Okay, what that's going to do is it's going to orientate our block like this right here. So our threaded insert is now going to be facing forward, the glue block on the back side, and the chuck. From that point, we're going to go ahead and turn basically from this section down. We're not going to worry about the scallops yet, but we're going to turn as much as we can. Obviously, we can't get to the top, but we're going to turn from this point basically all the way down, turn it, sand it, finish it, it'll be done. From that point, we will then reverse it back onto our threaded little jig here, and we can then clean up the top and finish it. I'm ready to add my glue block, and what I've got here is just again a scrap piece of wood, and I've added some CA to it. In case you don't know, CA basically stands for cyanoacrylate glue, which is basically a super glue, except it's a far superior version of it. Also has this accelerator, which you spray on one half, put your glue on the other. Much like contact cement, when the two touch, it's pretty much over. There's really no going back. So what I did was simply drew some crosshairs on the back and made me a little dimple there, and I'm just going to use my tailstock to help me line this up. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but if we can get it pretty close, it'll certainly help out. And like I said, that is pretty much it. When they touch, it's over. So I'm just going to give this a few minutes just to really set up, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to turn this. I'm going to turn me a round tenon. That way I know when I chuck it up in my jaws, after I flip it around, I know it's going to spin perfectly true. Now your first thought on that may be to go ahead and round over this block as much as you can. That's actually the wrong idea. Again, what we want to do is create a shoulder so that when we flip this around and it goes in our chuck, our jaws will seat against all these, and thus giving us much more support as opposed to if it was just a straight tenon. It also helps center and make sure it's going to spin true.